Hey basketball coaches and players, today I'm going to give you some basic beginner basketball plays that pretty much any player at any age can be able to run. We're going to start today's video with a couple of different motion offenses, and then we're going to finish off with a couple of set plays that you could run as well. So let's get down and let's check these out. Okay, so in this first play, what we're going to be doing is just a simple 4-out, 1-in motion offense. We have 4 players outside of the 3-point line, and then we have 1 player inside the 3-point line. Now, this is the high post version. There's also a low post version, but considering that there are so many teams now at the younger age group running different zones, I like to prefer teaching the high post, mainly because it's going to open up a lot more opportunities against a zone defense. And I should say that these motions I'm going to show are going to be good against the man I've got shown here, as well as zone defenses. So this first one is super simple. It is very similar to the 5-out basic pass and cut, pass and screen away, and pass and screen 4. And what we have from here is, let's say player 1 decides to pass to player 4. Well, if he decides to pass to player 4, that means that he's looking in this direction, and player 4 needs to take 1 to 2 steps towards player 1 so that they can make that pass without player 4, red, being able to intercept that. At this point in time, player 1 has 3 different decisions to make. And I always like to teach all 3 of these at the same time, because then it empowers my players to be able to think for themselves. So, if he says that he's passing over here, he would be calling out either 1, 2, or 3 if we were running this offense. If we were saying 4-out and 4-out 1 or 4-out 2, 4-out 3, how I basically would instruct that is 1 means screen away, 2 means screen 4, and 3 means cut. So if we say, for example, 4-out 1, that would be screen away. So instead of, once he passes to player 4, he's going to go and either screen for player 5 or screen for player 2, because both of these players are 1 screen away. And if that's the case, if he screens for player 2 is going to fill that spot. He may be open for a 3-point shot. If he screens instead for player number 5, then what's going to happen is player 5 needs to fill that spot, and now player 1 rolls towards the basket. I hope this is making sense so far. If he screens for player 5, after he rolls towards the basket, he's going to cut back up, and now he is going to be playing the high post. If, however, he screens for player 2 will be filling that spot, and I always like to teach a roll so that there's more movement on our offense. And if that's the case, I want player 5 to be setting up that screen as well for player 1. So player 2 will be open. We're also going to have potentially player 1 using 5 as a screen as well, being open as well. So now player 4 can pass to player 2, or 4 can pass to player 1 for the layup. Now, let's say, just as an example, neither of those players are open. What's player 5 going to do? Well, this spot is open. He needs to fill that. Player 1 is going to go to the high post. Now, if, for example, there's nobody open and we have the ball on that side, what's going to happen now is player 4 needs to say, nobody's open. We need to now have our team think for themselves, and because of that, the players who are 1 pass away need to do something, and that is either screen for each other or screen away. So 2 would screen for 5 and 1 would screen for 3. Whoever gets screened needs to fill the screener's spot. So that would be the high post and that side. Player 3 would then be filling the high post, and player 5 would be filling the point up top. At this point now, what we're going to have is player 1 filling the area that he screened for, and player 2 is going to be filling the spot that he screened for. Now, let's say one of those players is open. What we can have now is player 4 passing to player 5 as an example, and if he, before he passed, said 3, which means that he's cutting towards the basket, he'll cut towards the basket. He may be open for a pass and a layup. If he's not, instead of having your player pop right back out to where he came from, we'll have him screen for the farthest player away, again if he was cutting towards the basket, which would then have player 1 cut across, to fill that spot. Again, we always want to fill our spots. If player 1 is open, we can pass him the ball, and before we pass, let's say player 5 yelled out 2, which is screen 4. He would then, player 4 remembering he has to fill out, player 5 would then screen for the player he just passed to, which would be screening for player 1. Player 1 is going to be then using that screen, filling that point position, and I always like to teach my players to roll towards the basket, so if he's open, hit him up with a layup. If not, and player 1's open, he could take that shot. If no player is open, remembering anytime you roll towards or cut towards the basket, you need to screen for somebody. We don't want you going back to the same spot, so he could then either make the decision to screen for player 4, or he could make the decision to screen for player 3. And if he's screening for player 3, then we'll have player 3 cut towards the basket at first, just because we want to look for open layups, and if that's the case, he can hit that open layup. If player 3 cheats, then player 3 can pop out, and then he could maybe be open for a 3 potentially, maybe. If not, then player 5 needs to fill that spot in the middle. Now, one way you can really destroy a zone defense with this offense is, let's say we're running a 2-3. We can have a pass to the middle. That's going to draw up player 5. That's now opening up the whole key. And again, if we called 1 before we made that pass, or when we made that pass, we can go and screen away, which would be either screening for player 2 or screening for player 3. And I can tell you right now, I would be personally telling my team to screen for player 3 and having player 3 blue cut towards the basket, because now we can have a high to low pass, which could ultimately end up with a layup. Or if that collapses player 4, we can have a kick out 3 from player 4 blue. There's so many different options, and I really want my team to really make decisions for themselves. Now let's say we want to run a secondary motion. I personally really love the 5-out motion offense. And it's the same idea. There's 5 spots again, but there's so many things that you can do in the 5-out basketball offense. And if you really want to check out the full list of things that you can do in this offense, definitely go check out the link down below for the complete guide to the 5-out basketball offense. It will explain everything about this play. So here we can have a pass and screen for, pass and screen away, pass and cut. Those are the same three options as we had before. So cut or screen away or screen for. And I would keep those the same as before. If we have 1, it's going to be screen away, 2 is screen for, 3 is cut. So if we're running 5-out, we can say 5-out 4 or 5-out screen 4 or 5-out 2, whatever you want to say. And we can have, let's say for example, player 1 passing the player 2 and he says 3 when he passes. If he says 3, that means that he's cutting. If he's open, definitely hit him up with a pass for a layup. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can run this, and I always like to have a lot of movement with my players as much as possible. So of course we're going to have player 5 filling the point position because there's a spot open. Now when this happens, we could have, and if we do have, player 2 passing to player 5 after player 1 cut towards the basket, player 1 could still screen for player 3 and we could have an open 3, but that's more advanced. We don't want to do that when we're just teaching. But we would normally have player 3 move up towards the top, player 1 would fill out. Player 5 passes and he says 2, that means that he's screening for. He's screening for that player. Player 3 then fills that point position. We have player 5 roll towards the basket and we may be open for a layup. If not, and everyone's still covered, player 1 needs to fill up, player 5 needs to fill out. Now, this is a good teachable moment. We always want to have movement. Player 4 hasn't done anything for a while. So what does that mean? Well, we could screen after player 5 cuts towards or rolls towards the basket. We could have player 5 set a back screen on player 4. Player 4 could then cut across, hit him up with a pass there. If not, then at this time, then everyone clears out. And now we are still in our 5-out. We always want to try and teach our players as much as possible to do stuff on the fly. Read the defense and react to it. If we're doing screen away, then player 3 in this case would pass to player 1, screen away for player 2. Player 2 has 2 options to drive towards the basket or pop up for 3. If he, for example, does cut towards the basket, then what we would be looking at doing here is now having player 5 also use player 3 as a screen, popping up towards the point, and player 2 filling out and player 3 filling out. And at this time, we would be still in our 5-out offense. This works against the zone defense quite well as well. Now, a really good offense that you can run against a man defense as a set play are what I call the box offenses. And these are, again, beginner basketball plays. And what we're going to have is a couple of different options. If we want to start with our big men in the high post, we can set screens down. Those players can now pop up, and they may be open for threes. If there was a switch, we would definitely want to go to that side, because then we're going to have a mismatch. Everyone clears, and then we have a big man on a small guy, and that should be an easy basket. That's the whole idea behind this play. Another option is having our big men start on one side, our smaller guards starting on the other, and then screening across. So this would be box across. Player 2 would then pop out, player 3 would pop out, and now we would have, hopefully, a mismatch somewhere along those lines. We could even have player 5 set a screen after that box. Player 4 cuts down, and we may be wide open for a layup. We may be also open to get a switch down for a kick out 3. There's so many different options here. Make sure to go check out the complete guide to the 5-out basketball offense down in the description below. Also, if you're looking to have a killer zone defense, make sure to go and check out the unbeatable zone defense down in the description as well. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.